Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Hughes Harmony and watched the stars ahead. His ship was getting close to the Kepler 442 system. It was a place where no human had ever gone before. The stars looked peaceful from far away, but Jake knew better. This system belonged to the Cretan Empire. "Captain," said Lisa Parker from her seat at the communications station, "I'm getting messages from the Galactic Council. They want us to turn around right now." Jake walked over to her station. Lisa was young, but very good at her job. She could speak 12 different alien languages. Her face looked worried as she read the messages on her screen. "What do they say?" Jake asked. "They say we should stay away from this system. The Cretan control it. They say the Cretan kill anyone who comes here without permission." Jake nodded. He had heard stories about the Cretan. They were warriors who lived only to fight. They had taken over 17 star systems in the past 50 years. Most aliens were scared of them. Even the powerful Galactic Council tried to avoid them. "Sir," said Ben Walsh, the science officer, "I'm reading 3 large ships on the scanner. They're moving toward us fast." Jake looked at the main screen. 3 dots were getting bigger. Soon they would be close enough to see clearly. The Cretan ships were known for being ugly and covered in weapons. They looked like they were made for war and nothing else. "Captain," Lisa said, her voice shaking a little, "I'm picking up their radio signals. They're talking about us. What are they saying?" Lisa put her hand to her earpiece. She listened carefully. "They're using words like honor death and blood glory. They want to know if we're here to fight them." Jake thought for a moment. Every other species in the galaxy had the same advice about the Cretan: run away as fast as you can. But Jake had always believed that every species could be reasoned with, even the dangerous ones. "Ben, how long until they reach us?" "About 10 minutes, sir." Jake made his decision. "Lisa, open a channel to those ships." "Sir?" Lisa looked surprised. "Are you sure?" "Yes. And Ben, I want you to listen to their language patterns. See if you can learn anything about how they really think." Lisa pressed some buttons on her station. "Channel open, Captain." Jake took a deep breath. He knew this might be the most important conversation of his life. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship Hughes Harmony. We come in peace. We want to talk to you." The response came back quickly. The voice was deep and rough. It sounded angry. Lisa translated quickly. "He says his name is War Chief Fax Falloon. He wants to know why we are in their space. He says we should prepare to die with honor." Jake smiled. A little. At least they were talking instead of shooting. "Tell him we are explorers. We want to learn about other species. We want to be friends." Lisa spoke in the alien language. It sounded like growling and clicking sounds. The response came, back even angrier than before. "He says friendship is weakness. He says warriors don't make friends. They make enemies dead." Ben looked up from his station. "Captain, I'm noticing something strange about their language." "What is it?" "They use a lot of war words, but there's something else. The way they speak ... it sounds lonely. Like they're sad about something." Jake found that interesting. "Lonely warriors?" "Yes, sir. It's like they want to connect with someone, but they only know how to do it through fighting." The Cretan ships were getting closer. Jake could see them clearly now. They were black and covered in spikes. They looked like metal monsters floating. In space, each ship was twice as big as the Harmony. "Captain," Lisa said, "they're demanding that we surrender or fight. They say those are the only 2 choices." Jake thought about what Ben had said. If the Cretan were lonely, maybe they just needed someone to show them a different way to connect. Jake had an idea. It was crazy, but it might work. "Lisa, I want you to send them a message. Tell them we have a 3rd choice. What's the third choice, sir? Tell them we invite them to dinner. Lisa stared at him. Dinner? Yes. Tell them we want to share food with them. We want to tell them stories about our people. We want to learn about their people, too. Lisa looked like she thought her captain had lost his mind. But she translated the message anyway. The response from the Crethan ships was silence. For a long minute, nobody said anything. Then the deep voice came back. It sounded confused instead of angry. Lisa listened carefully. He says, he doesn't understand. He wants to know if this is some kind of trick. Tell him it's not a trick. Tell him that humans believe food tastes better when you share it with someone new. More silence. Jake could imagine the Crethan warriors trying to figure out what the humans were really planning. They probably thought it was some kind of trap. Finally, the voice came back. Lisa translated with surprise in her voice. He says he will come to our ship, but he's bringing guards. And if we try to trick him, he will destroy us. Jake smiled. Tell him he's welcome to bring guards. Tell him we'll have plenty of food for everyone. The 3 Crethan ships moved closer to the Harmony. Jake could see smaller ships leaving the main vessels. The Crethan were coming to visit. Captain, Ben said quietly, I hope you know what you're doing. Jake watched the alien ships approach. So do I, Ben. So do I. Amy Chun, the cultural liaison officer, rushed onto the bridge. Captain, I heard what you did. Do we really have enough food? For Crethan warriors? We're about to find out, Jake said. Amy, I need you to prepare the best meal you can. Make it something that shows them what humans are really like. Amy nodded and hurried away. Jake turned back to the main screen. The Crethan shuttles were almost at the Harmony. Soon he would be face to face with some of the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. But Jake wasn't scared. He was excited. This was why humans explored space. Not to conquer or to fight, but to meet new people and maybe make new friends. Even if those new people happened to be warrior aliens who had never heard of friendship before. Prepare for visitors, Jake announced to his crew. And remember, we're not just representing humanity today. We're showing the galaxy that there's always a better way than fighting. The Crethan shuttles docked with the Harmony. Jake straightened his uniform and walked toward the airlock. History was about to be made. The airlock door opened with a soft hiss. Jake Morrison took a deep breath as he waited to see his first Crethan warrior. What walked through the door was bigger than he had expected. War Chief Thax Valoom was nearly 8 feet tall. His skin was dark gray and covered in scars. He wore black armor that looked like it had been in many battles. His face was hard and mean, with yellow eyes that seemed to look right through Jake. Behind him came 4 other Crethan warriors, all carrying weapons. I am War Chief Thax Valoom, the alien said in broken English. His voice was deep and rough. You are the human who speaks of food sharing? Jake stepped forward. He was not afraid, even though the Crethan could easily kill him. Yes, I am Captain Jake Morrison. Welcome to our ship. Thax Valoom looked around the hallway. Everything was clean and bright. The walls were painted white and blue. It was very different from Crethan ships, which were dark and built only for war. This place is ... strange, Thax Valoom said. Where are your weapons? Where are your battle scars? Jake smiled. We have weapons, but we don't need to show them all the time. And we try not to get scars if we can help it. The Crethan warriors looked at each other. This was not what they expected. They had thought humans would be more like them, always ready to fight. Amy Chun came around the corner. She was carrying a tray of small foods. Captain, I brought some appetizers for our guests. Thax Valoom stepped back. His hand moved toward his weapon. What is this? Is this poison? No, Jake said quickly. These are just small foods to eat before the main meal. They're supposed to make you hungry for more. Amy held out the tray. On it were small pieces of cheese, crackers, and fruit. The Cretan warriors stared at the food like it might attack them. In our culture, Amy explained, we offer food to show that we are friends. It means we will not hurt you. Thaxvaloon looked confused. Food-sharing ... This is not war custom. No, Jake agreed. It's peace custom. One of the younger Cretan warriors stepped forward. He was smaller than the others, with fewer scars. War chief, may I try the small food? Thaxvaloon growled at him. Crex, this could be trap food. But Jake could see that Thaxvaloon was curious too. The war chief's eyes kept looking at the tray. If you're worried about poison, Jake said, I'll eat some first. Jake took a piece of cheese and ate it. Then he took a cracker and ate that too. He smiled at the Cretan warriors. See? Safe food. The young warrior named Crex reached out and took a small piece of fruit. He put it in his mouth and chewed slowly. His eyes got wide. War chief, this food has many tastes. Thaxvaloon frowned. What do you mean? It is sweet, but also ... something else. Our food paste has only one taste. This has many tastes together. The other Cretan warriors looked interested. They had never heard of food with more than one taste. On their ships, they ate processed protein paste that gave them energy but had no flavor. Would you like to try more? Amy asked. We have a whole meal prepared. Jake led the group to the ship's dining room. Amy had done an amazing job. The table was set with Earth's finest foods. There was barbecue from Texas, spicy curry from India, pasta from Italy, and fresh bread from France. The smells filled the room. The Cretan warriors stopped at the doorway. They had never seen anything like this. The colors, the smells, the way the food was arranged, it was like art to them. This is food place? Thaxvaloon asked. We call it a dining room, Jake said. Please, sit down. The chairs were too small for the big Cretan warriors, but they managed to sit. They looked uncomfortable, like they were expecting an attack at any moment. Rick Johnson, the ship's engineer, came into the room. He was carrying a plate of barbecue ribs. Captain, I thought our guests might like to try some real Texas barbecue. He set the plate in front of Thaxvaloon. The smell of the cooked meat and spices made the war chief's nose twitch. This is battle food? He asked. In a way, Rick said with a smile. We cook it over fire, like warriors might do after a battle. But we add spices to make it taste better. Thaxvaloon picked up a rib. It was messy to eat, and sauce got on his fingers. But when he tasted it, his eyes went wide. This food, it fights back, he said. What do you mean? Jake asked. It has strong taste. It makes my mouth feel like battle, but good battle. The other Cretan warriors tried the food too. They made sounds of surprise and pleasure. They had never tasted anything like this. How do you make food like this? Crex asked. Amy sat down at the table. We use many different plants and spices. Each one adds something different. Some make it hot, some make it sweet, some make it smoky. On our ships, Thaxvaloon said, we eat only protein paste. It gives strength for battle, but it has no taste. That sounds boring, Rick said. Food should be enjoyed, not just eaten. As the meal continued, Jake noticed something happening. The Cretan warriors were starting to relax. They were asking questions about the food and the humans. They seemed interested in learning. War Chief, Jake said, can you tell us about your people? What do you do when you're not fighting? Thaxvaloon looked surprised by the question. We ... we prepare for next battle. We train. We make weapons sharper. But what do you do for fun? The Cretan warriors looked at each other. They didn't seem to understand the question. Fun? Krex asked. Yes, Amy said. Things you do because they make you happy, like games or music or stories. We have battle stories, Vaxvaloom said slowly. Stories of great warriors who died with honor. Rick leaned forward. Do you have competitions? Like contests to see who is strongest or fastest? Yes, Vaxvaloom said, getting more excited. We have trials of strength. Warriors fight to prove who is mightiest. We have something like that too, Rick said. But our warriors don't get hurt. We call them sports. Jake could see that this was interesting to the Cretan. Rick, tell them about football. Rick's face lit up. He loved football. Well, you have two teams. Each team tries to get a ball to the other end of a field, but the other team tries to stop them. There's lots of running and tackling and strategy. Tackling? Vaxvaloom asked. When? You grab the other player and bring them down. But there are rules. You can't hurt them badly. And when the game is over, everyone shakes hands. The Cretan warriors looked confused. You fight, but you don't kill? Right, Rick said. The fun is in the competition, not in hurting people. Vaxvaloom was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, You humans are strange. You have the skills for war, but you use them for fun? We found out that competing can be just as exciting as fighting, Jake said. But everyone gets to go home to their families afterward. The young warrior Krex spoke up. War Chief, this sounds like the old stories, the ones about the time of trials. Daxfal's eyes got angry. We do not speak of the old times. But Jake was curious. What were the time of trials? Krex looked at his war chief, then back at Jake. Long ago, our people had contests instead of wars. Warriors would compete to show their strength. But we forgot those ways when the enemies came. What enemies? Amy asked. The Devourers, Vaxvaloom said quietly. They came from the dark space between stars. They killed many of our people. We had to become warriors to survive. We forgot the old ways. Jake began to understand. The Cretan had not always been warriors. They had been forced to become fighters to protect themselves. But they had been fighting for so long that they had forgotten how to do anything else. War Chief, Jake said, what if I told you that you could still be strong warriors, but also have fun competitions like in the old days? Vaxvaloom looked at him carefully. What do you mean? I mean, what if we could show you how to have contests that test your strength and skill, but nobody gets hurt? You could still prove who is the strongest, but everyone lives to compete again. The Cretan warriors looked at each other. This was a new idea for them. You would teach us these sports? Krex asked. If you want to learn, Jake said. But first, I challenge you to a contest right now. Vaxvaloom stood up quickly. His hand went to his weapon. You challenge me? Yes, Jake said calmly. I challenge you to an arm wrestling match. The war chief looked confused. Arm wrestling? Rick demonstrated by putting his elbow on the table and raising his hand. You put your elbow here, and we grab hands. Then we try to push the other person's hand down to the table. First one to touch the table loses. Vaxvaloom studied Rick's position. Then he slowly put his own elbow on the table. His arm was much bigger than Rick's. This is contest? Vaxvaloom asked. Yes, Jake said. Winner gets honor, but loser doesn't get hurt. Vaxvaloom grabbed Rick's hand. The contest was over in 2 seconds. The Cretan's strength was incredible. But instead of being angry about losing, Rick laughed. Wow, you're strong. Rick said, Good match. Vaxvaloom looked confused. You are not angry? You do not seek revenge? No, Rick said. It was fun. You won fairly. The Cretan warriors talked among themselves in their own language. Then Thax Valoom turned back to Jake. "This is interesting," he said. "You compete, but you do not hate the winner." "That's right," Jake said. "Competition makes us better, but we're still friends afterward." Thax Valoom was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised everyone. "I would like to learn more about these sports." 3 weeks after the first dinner, word had spread across the galaxy. The news was shocking. Humans had made contact with the Cretan Empire, and nobody had died. Some aliens thought it was impossible. Others thought it was a trick. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the communication center of the UES Harmony, reading messages from different species. Most of them were warnings. The Galactic Council was very upset. "Captain," Lisa Parker said, "Admiral Wright is calling from Earth. He sounds angry." Jake pressed a button, and the Admiral's face appeared on the screen. Admiral Wright was an old man with gray hair and a serious face. He did not look happy. "Morrison," the Admiral said, "what the hell do you think you're doing?" "Sir, I'm trying to establish peaceful relations with the Cretan Empire." "Peaceful relations? They're killers, Morrison. They've destroyed 17 star systems. The Galactic Council wants us to stay away from them." Jake stayed calm. "With respect, sir, I think there's more to them than just fighting. They're lonely. They want to connect with others, but they don't know how." "Lonely?" The Admiral's voice got louder. "They're not lonely. They're dangerous. I'm ordering you to break off contact immediately. Sir, I request permission to continue the cultural exchange program. I think we can learn something important here." The Admiral stared at him through the screen. "Cultural exchange? Morrison, you're not a diplomat. You're a ship captain." "Yes, sir. But sometimes a ship captain has to make decisions that affect more than just his ship." The Admiral was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed. "You have 1 month. Morrison, if anyone gets hurt, if any human ship gets attacked, I'm pulling you out of there. Understood?" "Understood, sir." The screen went black. Jake turned to his crew. They had all been listening to the conversation. "Well," he said, "we have 1 month to prove that friendship is stronger than fear." Dr. Helen Price, the ship's anthropologist, stepped forward. "Captain, I've been studying the Cretan culture. I think I have an idea. Let's hear it. They respect strength above all else, but they also have a deep need for honor and recognition. What if we could give them both through sports and competitions?" "What do you mean?" "I mean we organize real competitions. Not just small games, but big events that let them show their strength and skill, but with rules that keep everyone safe." Jake liked the idea. "Where would we hold these competitions?" "There's a small moon in the neutral zone between human and Cretan space. It's not owned by anyone. We could set up a temporary base there." Amy Chun, who had been listening, spoke up. "I could coordinate the food and cultural aspects, make it like a festival. And I could handle the technical side," Rick Johnson added. "Set up the equipment and make sure everything is safe." Jake made his decision. "Do it. Send a message to War Chief Thax Valoom. Tell him we want to hold a competition on the neutral moon. Tell him to bring his best warriors." 2 days later, the Harmony arrived at the small moon. It was a gray, rocky place with no atmosphere, perfect for building a temporary base. The human crew worked quickly to set up domes and equipment. Carl Davis, the ship's pilot, was excited about the racing competition. He had brought several small human vehicles, hovercycles that could fly fast over the moon's surface. "These should be interesting for the Cretan," he told Jake. "They're fast and they require skill to control." Tony Garcia, the security chief, was setting up an area for martial arts competitions. He had studied fighting styles from all over Earth. He was interested to see what the Cretan warriors could do. "The key," he explained to the crew, "is to make it competitive but safe. We want them to show their skills without anyone getting seriously hurt. When the Cretan ships arrived, Jake was surprised to see how many there were. War Chief Thax Valoom had brought not just warriors, but also younger Cretan, who seemed curious about the humans. "War Chief," Jake said as they met in the main dome. "Welcome to our competition ground." Thax Valoom looked around at all the equipment and preparations. "This is much work for simple contests." "Competition is important to us," Jake explained. "We believe that testing yourself against others makes you stronger." The young warrior Krex was with Thax Valoom. He had been very interested in human culture since the first dinner. "Captain Morrison, what contests will we have?" "Several different ones," Jake said. "Racing, fighting, strength competitions, and team challenges. Something for everyone." The first event was the racing competition. Carl had set up a course that went around the moon's mountains and valleys. It was challenging, but not dangerous. "The rules are simple," Carl explained to the Cretan pilots. "First one to complete 3 laps wins. But if you crash, you're out of the race." A Cretan warrior named Vex stepped forward. He was younger than Thax Valoom, but very confident. "Human vehicles are weak. Cretan machines are stronger." "Maybe," Carl said with a smile. "But these races aren't just about power. They're about skill and strategy too." The race began. The Cretan vehicles were bigger and more powerful, but the human hovercycles were faster and more agile. Vex took an early lead, but Carl stayed close behind him. On the second lap, Vex tried to take a turn too fast. His vehicle skidded and nearly crashed. Carl smoothly passed him and took the lead. "What?" Vex shouted. "How did small human pass mighty Cretan?" Carl's voice came over the radio. "Skill, my friend. Sometimes being smart is better than being strong." The race continued. Vex learned quickly and began to match Carl's techniques. By the third lap, they were neck and neck. The finish line was close dot in the end. Vex won by just a few seconds. But instead of being angry about losing, Carl cheered. "Great race," Carl said, shaking Vex's hand. "You learned those techniques really quickly." Vex looked confused. "You are not angry that I defeated you?" "No way," Carl said. "That was fun. You pushed me to race better than I ever have before." The other Cretan warriors watched this interaction with interest. They had never seen someone lose a competition and be happy about it. The next event was the martial arts competition. Tony Garcia had set up a ring with soft mats. The rules were clear. No weapons, no killing techniques, and the match stopped when someone was pinned or gave up. "This is limited fighting," Tony explained. "The goal is to show your skill, not to hurt your opponent." A big Cretan warrior named Gex stepped into the ring. He was even bigger than Thax Valoom and covered in battle scars. "Human, you are small. This will be quick." Tony smiled. "We'll see." The match began. Gex charged forward, using his size and strength to try to overpower Tony. But Tony was ready. He used the Cretan's own momentum against him, throwing him to the mat with a judo technique. The Cretan warriors watching made sounds of surprise. How had the small human defeated their champion? "What sorcery is this?" Gex demanded as he got up. "No sorcery," Tony said. "Just technique. In human martial arts, we learn to use our opponent's strength against them." The match continued. Gex was stronger, but Tony was more skilled. Every time Gex tried to use brute force, Tony found a way to counter it. Finally, Tony managed to pin Gex to the mat. "Match over," Tony said, helping Gex to his feet. "Good fight." But Gex was not finished. "Teach me," he said. "Teach me this technique fighting." Tony was surprised. "You want to learn?" "Yes. If small human can defeat large Cretan, then this is powerful knowledge." Soon, several young Cretan warriors were asking to learn human martial arts. Tony was happy to teach them. He showed them how to use balance and leverage instead of just strength. The secret, he explained, is to work with your opponent's energy, not against it. Don't try to stop their attack, redirect it. The Cretan warriors were fascinated. They had always been taught that bigger and stronger meant better. But now they were learning that skill and technique could be just as important. The strength. Competition was next. This was more traditional for the Cretan. They had to lift heavy objects and see who was strongest. Not surprisingly, the Cretan warriors won most of these events. But the humans didn't mind. They cheered for the winners and celebrated the competition. "This is strange," War Chief Fax Falloum said to Jake. "Your people lose, but they are happy." "Competing is fun," Jake explained. "Winning is nice, but the real reward is testing yourself and getting better." The last event was a team challenge. Mixed teams of humans and Cretan had to work together to solve a complex puzzle. They had to move heavy objects, solve technical problems, and coordinate their actions. At first, the mixed teams didn't work well together. The Cretan wanted to use force to solve everything. The humans wanted to talk and plan. But gradually, they learned to combine their different strengths. Jake watched as Krex and Sandra Lee, the human medic, worked together to solve their puzzle. Krex provided the strength to move heavy pieces, while Sandra figured out the technical aspects. "Krex," Sandra said, "can you hold this piece while I connect the wires?" "Yes, human Sandra." "Like this?" "Perfect. We make a good team." When their team won the challenge, both Krex and Sandra celebrated together. The young Cretan warrior had learned that cooperation could be just as satisfying as competition. But the most important moment came when one of the Cretan vehicles crashed during a practice run. The pilot, a young warrior named Dex, was hurt, but not seriously. Sandra Lee immediately ran to help him. She didn't think about the fact that he was an alien warrior. She just saw someone who needed. The alarm on the UES Harmony was loud and urgent. Jake Morrison ran to the bridge, still putting on his uniform. It was 3 a.m, ship time, and emergency calls never brought good news. "What's the situation?" he asked as he reached his command chair. Lisa Parker looked up from her communication station. Her face was pale. "Captain, we're getting distress calls from the Tau Ceti system. Multiple human colonies are under attack." Jake felt his heart sink. "Who's attacking them?" "The Zephyrian Collective, sir. They came out of nowhere with a huge fleet." The colonies had no warning. Jake knew about the Zephyrians. They were a hive-mind species that thought as one giant brain. They expanded across the galaxy by taking over other worlds and absorbing the people who lived there. They were ruthless and efficient. "How many colonies are under attack?" 7, sir, including New Austin and Terra Nova. Those are big colonies with millions of people. Ben Walsh looked up from his science station. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the Tau Ceti system. The Zephyrians brought at least 50 ships. Jake felt sick. 50 ships was a massive force. The human colonies in that system had only small defense fleets. They wouldn't be able to fight off an attack like this. "What about the Galactic Council? Are they sending help?" Lisa shook her head. "They're having emergency meetings, but they can't agree on what to do. Some members want to help. Others are afraid of the Zephyrians. They might not send help for days. And Earth Command? Admiral Wright is gathering a fleet, but it will take at least a week to get there. The colonies don't have a week." Jake stared at the star map on the main screen. The Tau Ceti system was marked in red, showing the danger. Those colonies had families, children, people who had left Earth to build new lives. Now they were going to die while politicians argued about what to do. "Sir, Lisa said quietly. "We're getting new orders from Earth Command." Jake looked at her. "What do they say?" "We're ordered to retreat to the Sol system immediately. Admiral Wright doesn't want us to get caught in the fighting." Jake felt angry. "Retreat? While innocent people are dying." "Sir, we're just one ship. What can we do against 50 Zephyrian vessels?" Jake was quiet for a moment. Lisa was right. One human ship couldn't fight the entire Zephyrian fleet. But maybe one human ship didn't have to fight alone. "Lisa, open a channel to War Chief Thax Valoom." The crew looked at him in surprise. "Sir?" Lisa asked. "You heard me." "Contact the Cretan fleet." "Captain," Ben said, "are you sure about this? We're not even officially allies with the Cretan." "No," Jake said, "but we're friends. And friends help each other." Lisa worked at her station for a few minutes. Then she looked up. "I have War Chief Thax Valoom on the line, sir." The main screen showed the familiar face of the Cretan leader. He looked as serious as always, but Jake thought he saw something else in his eyes. Concern, maybe. "Captain Morrison," Thax Valoom said, "I have heard about the attack on your colonies." "This is bad news." "Yes, it is," Jake said. "War Chief, I need to ask you something. It's a big favor. Speak." "The Zephyrians are attacking human colonies. Our government is sending help, but it will take too long. People are dying right now. Would you consider helping us fight them?" The bridge was completely silent. Everyone was staring at the screen, waiting for Thaxval's answer. The Cretan leader was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Captain Morrison, in all our history, the Cretan have never fought alongside non-Cretan forces." Jake felt his heart sink. "I understand." But Thax Valoom continued, "You humans have shown us something new. You have shown us that enemies can become friends. You have shown us that strength can be used to protect instead of conquer." Jake waited, hardly daring to breathe. "The Zephyrians are everything we have learned to hate. They fight without honor. They destroy without purpose. They absorb other species and make them slaves." Thaxval's voice got harder. "This is not war. This is murder. War Chief, I will help you, Captain Morrison. The Cretan fleet will fight alongside the humans." Jake felt relief wash over him. "Thank you, War Chief. This means everything to us." "Do not thank me yet," Thax Valoom said. "We must win first. How many ships do you have?" "Just the Harmony, sir. The main human fleet is still a week away. Then we fight together. 1 human ship and 12 Cretan battle cruisers." Jake felt a chill. Even with Cretan help, they were still outnumbered. But it was better than nothing. "War Chief, we need to coordinate our attacks. Our fighting styles are very different. Yes, your people are clever with strategy. My people are strong in battle. Together, we might be stronger than either alone." For the next several hours, the two fleets worked together to plan their attack. It was not easy. The Cretan were used to charging straight at their enemies and fighting with pure aggression. The humans preferred careful planning and tactical strikes. Lisa Parker worked with Cretan communication officers to develop a way for the two fleets to talk to each other during battle. It was complicated because the languages were so different, but they managed to create a basic system. "The key," Lisa explained to Jake, "is to keep the commands simple. Attack, retreat, protect, follow. The complex stuff we'll have to figure out as we go." Meanwhile, Rick Johnson was working with Cretan engineers to understand their weapons and shields. The Cretan ships were much more powerful than human ships, but they were also less flexible. "Their ships are like flying fortresses," Rick told Jake. "They can take a lot of damage and deal out even more, but they're slow and they can't change direction quickly." "And our ships?" "Fast and agile, but not as tough. We're better at hit-and-run tactics." Tony Garcia was studying the Zephyrian attack patterns. "The Zephyrians fight like a swarm," he said. "They don't have individual commanders making decisions. The whole fleet thinks as one mind. Is that good? Or bad for us? Both. It makes them very coordinated, but it also makes them predictable. If we can confuse their hive mind, we might be able to break up their formation." The combined human-Crethan fleet reached the Tau Ceti System 18, hours after the attack began. What they saw was horrible. 3 of the human colonies were already destroyed. The others were under heavy attack. "My God," Ben Walsh whispered, looking at the sensor readings. "They're not just conquering the colonies. They're absorbing the people." Jake watched the screen as Zephyrian ships landed on the planet's surfaces. They were taking humans and other colonists and turning them into part of their collective mind. The people weren't killed. They were made into slaves who couldn't think for themselves. "This ends now," Jake said. "All ships, attack formation." The battle began immediately. The Zephyrian fleet was massive, but they hadn't expected to face Crethan warriors. The first Crethan attack took them by surprise. War Chief Thaxval's ship, the Blood Honor, charged straight into the center of the Zephyrian formation. Its weapons were blazing, destroying 2 enemy ships in the first few seconds. "Harmony to all Crethan ships," Jake said over the radio. "Don't get surrounded. Stay together and watch each other's backs." The Crethan were brave, but they were also reckless. They wanted to destroy as many enemies as possible, even if it meant putting themselves in danger. Kevin Ross, a young officer on the Harmony, was coordinating with a Crethan strike team that was trying to land on New Austin Colony. The Zephyrians had surrounded the colony's main city, and civilian transports were trying to evacuate. "Crethan ship Iron Fist," Kevin said into his radio. "There are civilian ships trying to escape the planet. Can you provide cover?" "Human Kevin," came the reply. "We see the small ships. We will protect them." The Iron Fist moved to shield the civilian transports from Zephyrian fighters. The Crethan ship took heavy damage, but it didn't retreat. It stayed in position until all the civilian ships were safe. "Iron Fist, you need to pull back," Kevin said. "Your ship is badly damaged." "Negative, Human Kevin. Civilians are not yet safe. We will hold position." Kevin felt a surge of admiration for the Crethan warriors. They were risking their lives to protect people they had never met, people who weren't even their own species. The battle continued for hours. The combined human Crethan fleet was outnumbered, but they were working together better than anyone had expected. The humans provided strategic coordination, while the Crethan provided raw fighting power. "Captain," Lisa said, "I'm getting a message from the Zephyrian fleet. They want to talk." Jake was surprised. The Zephyrians usually didn't talk during battle. They just attacked until they won or were destroyed. "Put them on screen." The face that appeared was barely human anymore. It had been a person once, but now it was part of the Zephyrian collective. Its eyes were empty, and its voice was flat. "Human vessel," it said, "you fight alongside the Crethan. This is unexpected." "We fight alongside our friends," Jake said. "And we're here to stop you from hurting innocent people." "Innocent? There are no innocents. There are only those who serve the collective and those who have not yet been absorbed." "That's where you're wrong," Jake said. "People have the right to choose their own lives. Choice is inefficient. The collective mind is perfect. All beings should serve the collective." Jake felt sick listening to the emotionless voice. "We'll never let you turn people into slaves. You cannot stop us. We are many. You are few." The transmission ended, and the battle continued. But Jake noticed. 6 months had passed since the battle against the Zephyrian collective. Jake Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, stood on the observation deck of the new Unity station and watched ships from dozens of different species coming and going. The station was built at the edge of human and Crethan space, but it belonged to both species equally. It was the first truly integrated facility in the galaxy, where humans and Crethan lived and worked together every day. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Carroll White, his new aide, "the morning reports are ready." Jake took the datapad and looked at the numbers. They were impressive. Unity Station now hosted representatives from 37 different species. Trade between human and Crethan worlds had increased by 400%. Most importantly, there had been no major conflicts in this sector for 6 months. Any word from the Galactic Council? Yes, sir. They're still debating whether to make the human Crethan alliance official. Some members are worried about setting a precedent. Jake smiled. The Galactic Council was always worried about precedents. They had been running the galaxy the same way for thousands of years, and they didn't like change. What about the integration program? Very successful, sir. We now have 50 human Crethan teams working together on various projects. The mixed crews are performing better than anyone expected. Jake was proud of the integration program. It had started small, with just a few humans and Crethan working together on Unity Station. But it had grown quickly as both species learned how much they could accomplish together. Doc Rick Johnson appeared at Jake's shoulder. He was now the Chief Technology Officer for the entire Human Crethan Alliance. "Admiral, you need to see what we've accomplished in the engineering bay." Jake followed Rick through the station's corridors. The walls were painted in both human and Crethan colors, blue and white mixed with the dark gray and red that the Crethan preferred. It was a visual reminder that this was a place where two very different cultures had learned to work together. In the engineering bay, Jake saw something amazing. A new type of spaceship was being built, one that combined human technology with Crethan engineering. The ship was sleek like human vessels, but strong like Crethan battle cruisers. "We call it the Friendship class," Rick explained. "It's faster than any ship we've ever built, but it's also tough enough to survive a major battle." The Crethan contributed their armor and weapons technology, while we provided the navigation and communication systems. Jake walked around the ship, admiring the craftsmanship. Human and Crethan engineers were working side by side, solving problems together that neither species could have solved alone. "How many are we building?" 12 to start with. But if the tests go well, we could build hundreds. These ships could change how the galaxy thinks about defense and exploration. Jake was interrupted by his communicator. "Admiral Morrison, please report to the communications center. We have a priority message from the Outer Rim." Jake hurried to the communications center, where Lisa Parker was waiting for him. She was now the Chief Communications Officer for Unity Station. "Admiral," she said, "we're getting a signal from the Mordani system." "It's unusual." "The Mordani? I've never heard of them." "That's because they've never talked to anyone before. They're crystal-based life forms who live in the Outer Rim. They've been avoiding contact with other species for thousands of years." Jake was intrigued. What do they want? That's the interesting part. They're not contacting the Galactic Council or any of the major powers. They're specifically asking to talk to the Human Crethan Alliance. Why us? I think they've been watching what we've done. Here, word has spread across the galaxy about how we turned enemies into allies. Maybe they think we can help them too. Jake made a decision. Set up a meeting, but do it carefully. If they've been isolated for thousands of years, they might be easily frightened. Yes, sir. I'll coordinate with War Chief Thaxval's people. Speaking of Thaxvaloon, Jake hadn't seen his Crethan counterpart in several days. The War Chief had been busy with his own projects on the Crethan side of the station. Jake found him in the training center, where he was teaching young Crethan warriors the martial arts techniques they had learned from humans. But he was also teaching them something else: how to use their strength to protect others instead of conquering them. "Thax Valoom," Jake said. "I see you're still working on the new warrior code." The Cretan leader looked up. He looked different now than he had 6 months ago. He was still strong and intimidating, but there was something gentler in his eyes. "Jake Morrison." "Yes, the young ones must learn the new ways." "What are you teaching?" "Them that a true warrior fights for those who cannot fight for themselves. That strength without honor is meaningless. That the greatest victory is when your enemy becomes your friend." Jake watched as a young Cretan warrior helped a human child who had fallen down. The warrior was gentle and careful, using his great strength to help instead of hurt. "The old ways are dying," Thax Valoom continued. "The young ones understand that conquest brings only loneliness, but friendship brings strength that lasts forever." "Speaking of friendship," Jake said, "we've been contacted by a new species, the Mordani. They want to meet with us." Thaxval's eyes lit up. "More potential friends?" "Maybe, but they've been isolated for a long time. We need to be careful." "Careful?" "Yes, but also hopeful. Every species we have met has taught us something new." 2 weeks later, a small delegation from the Mordani arrived at Unity Station. They traveled in a ship that looked like it was made of crystal and light. When they emerged, Jake was amazed by what he saw. The Mordani were tall, thin beings who looked like they were made of living crystal. They moved gracefully and communicated through harmonic sounds that were beautiful to hear. Their leader introduced herself as Resonance of Deep Waters. "We have watched your alliance with great interest," she said in a voice like musical chimes. "We have seen how you transform conflict into cooperation." "We're honored by your visit," Jake replied. "What can we do for you?" "For 10,000 years, we have isolated ourselves from the galaxy. We believed that contact with other species would corrupt our harmonic way of life. But watching your friendship with the Cretan, we realized that isolation has made us weak." Amy Chun stepped forward. She was now the Chief Cultural Officer for the Alliance. "What kind of help do you need?" "We want to learn how to make friends with other species without losing who we are. We want to contribute to the galaxy without being absorbed by it." Jake exchanged glances with Thax Valoom. This was a familiar challenge. The Cretan had worried about the same thing when they first started working with humans. "The secret," Thax Valoom said, "is to share your strengths while learning from others. We are still Cretan. We are still warriors. But now we are also friends and protectors. What are your people's strengths?" Amy asked. "We are healers and builders. Our crystal technology can repair damage and create structures that last for centuries. We can also communicate across vast distances without machines." Jake felt excited. The Mordani abilities could be incredibly useful for the Alliance. But more importantly, they seemed to be genuinely interested in friendship rather than conquest. "Would you be willing to start small?" Jake asked. "Maybe send a few representatives to live here on Unity Station. They could learn about our way of life while teaching us about yours. That would be harmonious." Resonance of Deep Waters said. Over the following months, the Mordani representatives integrated into life on Unity Station. They were fascinated by the concept of competitive sports, especially when Amy Chun introduced them to music competitions. "Competition through harmony," Resonance of Deep Waters explained to Jake. "This is something we understand. We compete to create the most beautiful sounds, but we do not hurt each other." The Mordani brought their own contributions to the Alliance. Their crystal technology helped repair damaged ships and stations. Their communication abilities allowed instant contact across the galaxy. Most importantly, their peaceful nature helped balance the warrior instincts of the KRAETHON. Dr. Helen Price, now the chief anthropologist for the Alliance, was studying the changes in all three species. It's remarkable, she told Jake. Each species is becoming stronger by learning from the others. The humans are becoming more disciplined from the Krethen. The Krethen are becoming more peaceful from the humans and Mordani. The Mordani are becoming more confident from both human and Krethen influence. And the result? A form of civilization that's stronger than any single species could create alone. The success of the three-species alliance didn't go unnoticed. Soon, other species began asking to join. The Velen, a race of traders, wanted to learn about the alliance's economic cooperation. The Zephyrians, the same species that had attacked the human colonies, sent representatives asking for a chance to reform their collective society. Admiral, Carl White said during one of their morning briefings, we're getting requests from 17 different species. They all want to learn about our model of cooperation. Jake felt overwhelmed. 17? Yes, sir. Including some that have been enemies for centuries. They want to know how we turned the Krethen from conquerors into protectors. What do you think, Faxvaloom? The Krethen leader considered the question. I think friendship is contagious. When others see how much Saint